Fernando Alonso, thanks for agreeing to talk to Gareth Jones on Speed.
Sure, it's no problem.
Are you okay to start the interview now?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, first question. Sut wyt yn teimlo ar ôl golli pencampwriaeth y byd?
What?
Sut wyt yn teimlo ar ôl golli pencampwriaeth y byd?
I'm sorry, I don't understand you.
Yeah, that's because I'm speaking in Welsh, Fernando. Are you saying that you can't speak Welsh?
No, well, I guess many people can't.
Right, and so if I keep speaking Welsh, you'd find that frustrating and annoying.
Yes, I would.
Good. Well, as we say in Wales, tymor nesa paid a siarad ar y radio yn Eidaleg.
What does that mean?
It means next season don't talk on the pit radio in Italian then. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth, and I have to admit the thing I probably hate most in the world when I'm out driving are cyclists who don't have lights on their bikes. I wouldn't dream of going out on my bike without a light. What are these people? They've got a death wish? Zog, do you have a pet hate in driving?
I've got a couple. People who don't understand rights of way at roundabouts is quite a big one.
Give way to the right of traffic already on the roundabout.
Yeah, but it's remarkable how many people don't seem to get that. And it applies to mini roundabouts as well, remember. But the thing that's been bugging me just recently is lane discipline on motorways. I've been doing more motorway miles recently than I have been for a while. And I've been a bit shocked to be reminded about how bad people are at pulling over into the left-hand lane.
OK. Actually, I want to talk about motorway driving with you in more depth in a moment. I think that's worth exploring, that is. Richard, you got any pet hates when you're out driving?
Loads. Cyclists, scooter riders, people who've got
other motorists
getting in the way. I'm busy. Just a general dithering. I find it's okay. I'm not advocating that you should be roaring through 30-mile-an-hour zones at 100 miles an hour. Quite the opposite, but dithering.
What, you should be roaring through 100-mile-per-hour zones at 30-mile-per-hour? What are you saying, Porter?
Well, that would be dithering, you see. That's the thing.
Yeah,
a 100-mile-an-hour zone would be an extraordinary place. It was enforced minimum speed limit, which I suppose there would have to be for safety's sake. But then someone in a Corsa would drive in and they would inevitably go. I took a picture the other week. I had to go to Boreham Wood, which, no offence if you live in Boreham Wood, but your town is the worst place on earth. And,
people always do that when they say with respect.
With respect.
What
no offence.
I've got no...
I have no respect. I used to work in Boreham Wood. It's a hateful place. I don't know what is wrong with it, but it is just a weird, strangely unfriendly, rather bleak little town that sort of hovers on the outskirts of a bigger conurbation. And I had to go there because there's a big pet shop there. That's as simple as that. I had to go and buy some things for my dog. And
because this is what you do now.
Well, she wanted the new Crystal Castles album. She wanted a couple of new dresses and the things. Oh, wait, what? And so... I went to this massive pet superstore on a Saturday. It was a horrible experience from start to finish. And in this incredibly packed car park, in this shopping complex on the outskirts of Boreham Wood, where you could barely find a space, there was a Vauxhall Corsa parked so ineptly that it took up 2 spaces.
Oh, of course.
It was
a
Corsa.
Corsa.
About a quarter of the front end of the car was into the next space. It was at a terrible angle, and it was so bad I took a picture of it just because it spoke volumes about everything that's wrong with anyone who buys a Vauxhall Corsa. Because if you buy a Corsa, it shows you care so little about cars that by association you care so little about driving. You're not going to be good about it, and you're not going to put any work into it because it's just a chore for you. And it's only made worse because you drive a car that makes driving a chore. You know, perhaps if you bought a Fiesta or even a Polo or something like that, you'd go, oh, it doesn't have to be like this. And maybe now I'll pay more attention. So I suppose what I'm saying really is that, and this probably applies to all of us, that our pet hates about things on the road are mostly around selfishness. Because there's a lot of us out there on the road, and we all have to be considerate. Learn how to use a roundabout because it makes everything move faster. Learn the right discipline on the motorways because it makes everything work
and
faster
learn to park properly so that you don't inconvenience.
Don't take up 2 bloody spaces in a busy shopping car park.
For you, it's parking. For me, it's cyclists without lights. For you, Zog, it's lane discipline of motorways. All of this is dealt with in the very first sentence of the last version of the Highway Code I read, which I can't remember, a few years ago. Well, I think the very first sentence in the Highway Code is something like, you share the road with other road users. And you start from that point. You're sharing it. So they have as much justification to be on that bit of road as you do, and so a bit of deference. Now, we're quite polite guys, aren't we? We're the kind of people
off. Sorry, that was childish. Go on.
It was a gift.
It really wasn't. I think
We're the kind of people who, we will hold doors for people who are carrying trays of coffee and not let go at the last minute. If there's a queue, we'll take our place at the back of the queue and we'll wait politely.
Don't like queue jumping. No, not into that at all.
It's a British thing. Lane discipline in Germany is very good because in Germany, if there's a rule, you stick to it, right? You would expect that lane discipline in Britain should be good because, there's a queue, everyone move, we should be good at following those rules, but we're not.
Well, I think maybe that's part of the problem, that we're so conditioned and so very, very good at joining a queue that sometimes there's an outside lane full of cars and they're all doing 55 miles an hour on a motorway because nobody's thought to move across back into one of the other lanes because they're too busy. I'm in a queue. Good, nice, orderly, straight line of cars. I don't know. Or it could just be blithering selfishness and they should all be machine gunned. But I'm starting to sound like bloody Jeremy Clarkson.
Well, we all have this problem. So you did some motorway driving, you were saying.
As Richard says, we just seem to be terrible at this in Britain. I guess I'd forgotten how bad it often is. So few drivers will pull over when they're not actually on their way to overtake somebody. So many drivers will just stick in the middle lane, so you end up with this queue of cars in the middle lane of a 3-lane motorway. Lots of space in the left-hand lane, slow lane, whatever you want to call it, which isn't being used and is therefore slowing down the general flow of traffic behind. And it's not as safe, if you're not using as much of the space on the road as you could. It's, in the end, less safe as well as less quick. This rule about pulling over to the left just doesn't seem to be getting through to people. I don't know.
Question is, what do we, as responsible drivers, do about it when finally you creep past that Burke who's sitting at the front of this middle lane queue, causing all these guys to stack up behind him in the middle? What do you do? Do you stay in the outside lane and just get the heck out of there? Do you pull over left relatively close in front of them, looking in the mirror and very clearly making a point of moving over to the left-hand lane so they get the clue, I better do it as well?
Yes, I find myself doing that a lot, very pointedly obeying. I sometimes do it if you're in the very outside lane, lane 3, as it's sometimes called.
Lane 3,
overtaking lane 2. And and then you go past somebody and the inside lane, lane 1, is full and there's lorries there, but there's somebody who's being a bit of a div in just sitting in the very outside lane, and I find myself very pointedly moving to the middle, even if it's only for a short space of time and I know I have to move out again behind them because they're still sitting there, just to make the point.
Just make the point.
Look what I'm doing. If you see me in your mirrors, see what I'm doing. I'm not swerving around like a silly idiot. I'm just trying to make this all work properly.
I'm just making a clear signal, moving over. And
yes, look at me doing it properly. Now, why don't you get it through your thick skull? This is how we can all help each other. Just because you've got a stupid bloody Audi A4 does not make you own this motorway.
I used to think that this was a very British thing. I was saying the reason why we do it is you'd think being British that we'd be orderly, but I think the reason why we do it is British. An Englishman's home is his castle. It's territorialism. We've got a finite amount of space on this sceptred isle, and people sit in the middle. Oh, this is my position, elbows out. That's why.
Which is a classic sort of bit of driving psychology. I mean, that's when you get in your car, you're carrying your little personal space with you, and you really don't want it intruded on. And
Well, I think we've become more selfish as a country, and I'll tell you how you can notice this as well. Airport baggage carousels. Now, the thoughtful thing is to stand well back from the carousel until you see your suitcase, then go forward and get it. Then all of the 400 people off the massive aeroplane can all get their bags. But no, the first bunch of who get off the plane go and stand jam hard up against it. I hope they get sucked into the mechanism. It's the single most selfish, thoughtless, inappropriate behaviour that a human being can do in the modern world.
Had some trouble at airport
every bloody time I go to the airport. It drives me bananas because there is no need for it. And when I get my bag off, if you've ever been in your selfish, stupid, pathetic, brainless knees by my very sharp-edged suitcase, I'll tell you, it wasn't an accident. I did that deliberately to make you pay for your selfishness.
And Richard doesn't drive in the same way.
I'm not allowed to drive anymore. The doctor says it makes me too angry. No, the motorway thing is the same. I'll tell you one thing, though. Too much space on British motorways. Because you notice in France...
No!
I'll tell you what. In France and Italy, where you would think as well that often, if you've ever been in an Italian post office, they're not so keen on the queue. You'd think they maybe wouldn't be so good on the motorways. But they only have 2 lanes on a lot of their motorways.
True, yeah.
So there is a greater need for everyone to try and work to make this thing keep flowing.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine once said the best thing, he described it as French motorways, it's as if the inside lane barrier is magnetic. Everybody stays in the inside lane until they need to overtake. Then they move out, they go round the thing that's in the way, the lorry, the slow-moving van, whatever, and then they pull back in again when it's clear. And that keeps them going. If you ever get to a bit of Italian or French motorway where there are 3 lanes, it actually goes to pot a little bit.
So maybe that's
too much space.
And that's the same problem in Britain.
We've got too many options.
Too many options, exactly. It's overwhelming us.
You've been listening to Grumpy Old Drivers. Hello, welcome to driver training. Now, a simple question to start. Tell me, this road sign, a blue sign with a white surround and a little white line pointing left, what does it mean?
Turn right. No, wait. Roundabout. No, a heavy load ahead. I'm sorry, I really don't know.
Oh, well, that is a shame. I don't either. I was hoping you could tell me. Well, look, here's your driving licence anyway. And remember, on a motorway, always keep... never... sometimes keep left, but... no, it's right? Left? No, I think I was right first time, wasn't I? Or was it...
Tell you what, I'll just stay in the middle lane to be on the safe side.
Good idea. Away you go. If you follow me on Twitter, it's Gareth Jones TV, then you'll know that recently I drove up to North Wales to take part in what was called a low-carbon event, Digwyddiad Carbon Isel. It was bilingual. I did the whole thing in English and in Welsh. And the idea was to encourage kids in northwest Wales, sort of around Bangor, Anglesey, that part of the world, to consider a career in a low-carbon industry, because in the future there are going to be more and more low-carbon industries. And in northwest Wales, that specifically means electrical generation using nuclear power at the Wilver Power Station in Anglesey, or working with the companies who are turning wind power into electrical energy with the lots of offshore and onshore wind farms that there are in northwest Wales. So being as this was a low-carbon event, I thought, right, I'll go open a low-carbon car. So I did a straw poll taking suggestions. Most people suggested things like McLaren P1s because they're very low and have got a lot of carbon on board. I think they deliberately missed the point. But what I chose in the end was the Citroen DS5 Hybrid4, which is a low-carbon car because it only produces 98 grams of badness per kilometre of goodness. That's the new scale. That's how they measure them these days.
I'd also find slightly odd about the use of grams of carbon per kilometre. For a given fuel, whether it's diesel or petrol, that figure is entirely interchangeable with your mileage, your MPG, or rather, there's simply a numerical factor to convert one to the other.
Yeah,
you only need one number. You only need one number, whether it's MPG or your emissions number, but you don't need both. It's almost sort of complicating things by introducing the
car tax system and stuff prefer the grams per kilometre, which is just taken at a certain point in the standard laboratory rolling road cycle on which the EU standard figures are calculated. But it's interesting, we're getting a whole generation of cars now where I suspect they're being set up deliberately to shine at these precise points, these precise cycles that are run. And so you've got cars like the Fiat 500 Twinner that I've got, which is a sub 100 grams per kilometre car. It's claimed to be capable of something like 67 miles per gallon. It never does that in real life. I mean, I don't think any cars do their real mile per gallon, their laboratory mile per gallon brochure figures in real life, but the disparity between the brochure figure And reality with my Fiat is
It's bigger than most.
Yawning,
Yeah.
and if you look on the internet, you'll find that most twin air owners who've at least expressed an opinion are having the same situation. It's fine. It's a great little car. It's not exactly thirsty, and as I've said before on the show, it just sort of basically levels out to about 39 miles to the gallon everywhere.
No matter how you drive
which is
it,
not
yeah.
terrific, but it's fine.
Well,
fine.
I'll come to the efficiency, the performance of this car in terms of economy and green stuff in a moment, but not before I've discussed its appearance. I think this car is cracking looking. It is science fiction. It looks more modern than anything in Space 1999 did in 1970 something when it was made. Proper modern. What
Now, you know that
What?
those Eagle transporters,
Great.
that's a fantastic bit of design.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have you saying that
Well, this Hybrid
that
4,
vehicle,
the DS5, was white and had an element of the Eagle Transporter about it. It has a great stance. I love the way this car looks, and it echoes old DS stuff, that kind of tapering rear roof thing that's going on. There's a real DS parked on this road. I wanted to take a picture of mine, say a real one. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not a real DS.
Do you know what I liked about the DS5? Is
You've driven it as well,
I've
haven't you?
driven the normal, just diesel automatic. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I drove the Hybrid 4. That you
Have
drove.
you? Yes.
And we'll get onto that in a minute, but just looks-wise, it is a terrific-looking car. Some really nice detailing. One of the bits I really liked is that if you sort of follow the sculpting that goes along below the windows in the metalwork, and then it arrives at the back door side window, and there's a sort of scallopy type swoop thing. It's quite subtle, but you just spot it, and it catches the light. It's beautiful. And there's quite a lot of sculpting work going on.
And detailed
in it.
aero
Loads of
work.
stuff.
No, I agree.
There are
It's
tiny
a
little
looker.
ribs and fins. You know, we spotted on, was it the
Well,
Auris?
Auris, yeah, the motor show in Paris.
There are little ribs and things on the rear of the third light, is that what they call it? It's at the back, you know.
The one at the top.
The vertical running down the back of the rear side glass.
Oh, the window, right, yeah. There's loads of nice little detail, whether it's functional aero stuff or it's just things they've done because they look nice, but it's a really striking car.
Has a fundamental flaw, though. You know the Picasso, the previous generation Picasso? You know the way that the old Picasso has this additional A-pillar? Now, when you sit high up in a sort of MPV kind of car, you look down through that, you have good visibility. If you sit low in a car that's got that, you are honestly,
Very
really.
sweary programme. I feel personally responsible for starting this foul-mouthed sort of
Formula
Vettel
One
and
led the
Raikkonen on
way.
the podium type.
Yeah, episode I'm going to use.
being a bad influence.
But visibility on roundabouts in this car is shocking.
You're going to do it
Glad he's
again,
out.
then.
We got off lightly.
You are continuously trying to move your head to look between the A and the extra A pillar to see cars entering the roundabout. It's ever so hard. And I can't remember a car with as bad visibility as that since I drove, I don't know, Rover P6 or something like that. That was even
P6
better.
has amazing visibility. The pillars are very slim.
Shocking. I wrote some other
this is
stuff.
the thing,
Old cars do generally,
Yeah.
don't they? Really thin pillars.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
because-
amazed. at
and they generally crumple in a crash, unlike
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah, no, it's a bit yin and yang.
well-designed modern
so-
cars which stand it better. And I guess that's one of the reasons why those pillars aren't so
it had some.
easy to see through.
Do you remember the GS, the Citroen GS, or was it the GSX, which had those satellite controls off the steering wheel? It had a very unusual rotary set of controls, and that was kind of wacky and classically Citroen. Right? The ergonomics in
Eccentric.
this car, it was also didn't work. I'm having a right old swear today. And in this new Citroen, the ergonomics were rubbish as well. I couldn't see half the instruments, and
Yeah.
I couldn't read what the sticks were for. I was really struggling.
Sticks?
Sticks.
Stalks?
Yeah, stalks. Sticks!
Sticks.
I'm a drummer. Sticks!
Stalks.
Sticks,
Yeah.
stalks.
Well, because I think the problem there is that I thought that the steering wheel was too big and fat.
Yeah?
And
Yeah,
almost
no, that's
felt
probably what it
heavy.
is.
Big four-spoke wheel with a huge sort of central boss. You know, Citroen for a while dallied with this fixed central boss.
Yes.
And
the
moving
one
wheel thing.
Went
Yeah.
right off the idea really quickly, and this car doesn't have it. Feels like it sort of should, because it needs this quasi-futuristic...
Modernism, yeah.
Easier to see
stuff
through
to it.
wheel.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Well, really, it needs a big one-spoke wheel like Citroen's of
That would
the
be
past.
beautiful,
And I'm
yeah.
sure they could do it now. Airbag technology's moved on, where you can stick an airbag into it, pretty tiny.
Other ergonomic ergonomic things as well. You know, it's got this lovely roof, which is split into 2 glass panels with a strip down the middle with all the controls for your bloody head-up display that this car's got up here. The controls for that. The controls for the lines that cover the glass panoramic roof. They're all in a centre console in the roof to your left as the driver looks. Right, I can't focus on that. I can focus on things miles away. I can focus on things at an arm's length. If I've got to change my focus from the deep road ahead to any instruments up here, I'm stuffed. I cannot do it. It's the only car I've found with so much stuff up there. Bad idea, Citroen.
Since you mentioned it, how's the head-up display?
Fascinating and a little bit distracting. You've got to tweak with it. They don't project onto the windscreen. They have a little Perspex plate which flips up and hovers between you,
I don't know why this, but Peugeot Citroen Group, this is the technology they use. It feels like it's sort of a generation out of date.
You don't need to put
Loads
it
of
on
other
that.
people have figured out how to just project onto a windscreen. I have done for years,
Well,
actually.
I'm sure they could do that. I'm sure there's a design reason for it.
Well,
It's in some way easier to...
You can alter the angle of that glass so it can match your seat position, so it's always perfectly in view.
But the ones that project onto the screen...
You just move the projector,
yeah,
do you?
Move the projector.
Yeah, you see, that's bonkers as well. It had a fridge, very cool.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
It did have it did. It actually did. It had a cool section, but I was a bit worried to put my sat-nav in there, connected via the USB thing. I was worried it wasn't going to work because it was too cold in there. And it wouldn't read the SD card on my sat-nav. If I used that as a USB extension and plugged it in so you can play media off your SD card, 1 time out of 10, it actually worked. It's the only car I've ever found cannot read an SD card of 32 gig.
Did you try another SD card?
No, I didn't actually. No, I didn't try another SD card.
Okay,
but mine did work once, but then not work again.
Right, okay. So it is probably reading, not the card.
And there are other cars I've had where you take your SD card out and pop it into the dash, like in the Audi, and it plays it no problem. BMW, no problem. Anyway, it only runs on the electric motor for very short periods of time. See, I love cars that pull away under electric power. I think that's the right thing to do. It's better than using a starter motor. Use your electric motor, get rolling, bump start the engine. Brilliant. The electric motor barely ever cut in. Yes, it was thrifty, 44 to 46 miles per gallon, which is pretty good considering how we were driving. I think that's pretty good.
But it has a diesel engine.
It has a diesel engine.
You'd think a car of that size with a diesel engine would do that anyway.
I think this thing, if I drove it deftly, probably get 54 miles per gallon, I think, which matched the B series. So it's it's up there, it's right up there.
Can you remember what the sticker figure for?
I can tell you, it's written there somewhere. Have a look at that. It's on there somewhere. We dig that out. But my biggest criticism of this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car is the transmission. Driving this car was like trying to pick up a 15-pound stage weight using knicker elastic. You pull at it, it comes off the ground, it catches you up, you off. It was all over the place. The combination of the diesel and the electric motor didn't work. I don't know if it was the gearbox or the software or what, but it would accelerate and then you'd hit the rev limiter and it would drag you back and then you'd go again. It was horrible. And I hate to say that because it's beautiful. This car is beautiful. But of any car I've driven recently, this is the one that works the worst.
I'm glad you said all that. Because I drove that Hybrid 4 a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's the worst car I've driven all year.
It was unbelievable, wasn't it?
Dreadful. It gives you some sense of what it might be like to drive the very, very first prototype of something.
That's
when they
it.
haven't done any work on it whatsoever.
It's underdeveloped.
The powertrain is shockingly bad. It's like they've just shoved an electric motor under the back and done nothing else yet.
And
just seeing what happens. It's a lash-up the engineers came up with on a Friday night. And added to that, the chassis is rubbish as well. The ride is appalling.
I thought at motorway speeds it wasn't bad. It was a bit silky smooth.
I can't remember the last car I drove that doesn't ride okay on motorways, because motorways are pretty smooth.
Yeah.
But
and on a particularly
is
smooth
dreadful.
road, it gets the most out of a smooth road. When you go to a really nice bit of road, it really makes the most of it, but it's very sensitive otherwise.
No, I think it's because the smooth road is a blessed relief.
Yeah.
The ride is appalling, but then there's no trade-off in the handling. The handling is just, it feels, it's just nose heavy. The steering is not quite right. Somehow the assistance is inconsistent. And it's got this massive steering wheel, which I think makes things feel worse. And the whole thing is just joyless. It really is. It just feels unfinished. It feels like they haven't even started. They've thrown together a collection of parts and then gone home for the night.
But it looks great.
Yeah.
Looks
great
terrific.
first impression, but needs another year or two's development.
Reminds me of a girlfriend I had a very long time ago. gorgeous, but very high maintenance. This one just wouldn't chug along nicely, needed too much care. And I hate to say that because that car should have been fantastic, but it wasn't. Sorry. Pierre?
Oui, André?
I think that it is time that we here at Citroen made an hybrid model.
This sounds very complicated and also, how you say, extremely expensive.
Mais oui, I estimate to develop such a complex drivetrain would need around 400,000 man-hours and cost somewhere in the region of 2 million euros.
Mon Dieu!
Or I could glue this electric motor from a washing machine to the rear axle for about €3.50. Robert est votre uncle.
Sounds, how you say, complètement rubbish. Let's do it!
Vive la France!
Gareth Jones on speed.
Richard, have you personally built any cars recently? Short answer, yes or no?
No.
No. Zog, have you built a car at all recently?
Not recently, no.
No. There you go, you see.
You?
No, I built a Lego model of the Delta Wing, but that was a niche thing. I wasn't volume producing.
No mass production of
No.
monocoque body.
And there you go, that is typical of declining mass production of cars in Europe.
I suppose the question really, though, is, Gareth, do you own several factories that are capable of mass-producing cars, but that you're struggling to use?
Well, I've got a lot of Lego, but we've still got more room in the kitchen if I wanted to build cars. No.
No. Zog, no factories that you can think of? No.
Not unless there's one I've forgotten out back. No.
What makes you different from, say, Ford or General Motors
see, 'cause
or
they
Fiat,
have those,
who
don't they?
are saddled with these factories that they can't use enough
Overcapacity.
of. Overcapacity. And car factories really only make sense in the mass production world if they're running at full chat, and anything much less than that, and you're not making much money, if any at all. And this is the problem they've now got. And we've just seen, so Ford are going to close their factory in Genk, which makes the Mondeo and the S-Max and the Galaxy at the moment, and move production of those cars
To Cologne?
to down to
Valencia,
Spain as well.
Valencia, yeah.
And GM are in all sorts of antsy situations about it. A lot of their factories are in Germany, where they've got quite powerful unions that they've still got to fight, and they don't want to upset those. Fiat's a weird one.
Fiat, well, they said they've made some announcement that you can't build cars in Western Europe anymore, haven't they?
Well, Fiat have, to all intents and purposes, given up on
The B segment.
well, almost all car making. They've explicitly said, we can't build big cars. To all intents and purposes. I mean, the Chroma and things like that. No, they've stopped doing that because big Fiats have never done very well outside of Italy.
Sure.
True.
So no more of those. But now they're essentially saying that they aren't very good at what's known in the industry as the C segment. We call it the Volkswagen Golf, Ford Focus class of car.
Fiat Tipo.
Yeah,
Bravo,
before that, the
Bravo.
Strada and, you know...
The Ritmo.
Ritmo,
the same
as it
car,
was
wasn't it?
known
Yeah.
in some places. And then Tipo, and then Bravo, and then Stilo, and then now it's back to Bravo. And then there's just empty space. They're not going to bother. What they're going to try and do for people who need a bit more room with a Fiat is just endlessly spin off things using the 500 names. So
The Giardino. Is there going to be a 500
well, there's going to be
Giardino?
there's 500L, there's going to be like, I think, a 500XL, and there's a 500 sort of faux off-roader mini countryman type thing. The L's already been announced. There have been some spy photos and official sketches of the other stuff. It all looks borderline awful. And, you know, the whole point about the Fiat 500 is that it's tiny and cutesy, and you can't stretch that bug-eyed, oh, look at me, I'm so sweet like a puppy kind of style to a bigger car.
It's
It
a
immediately
small,
kills the
small
point of it.
formed thing, and if you
That's it.
can't.
It's just stupid, you know. I mean, Mini is
Even a
stretching it bit.
ladybird that is bigger than the conventional ladybird is a bit threatening. Girlfriend, what do we call those things that come into our kitchen that aren't ladybirds?
Harlequin.
Harlequins. Have you ever noticed these harlequins? They're like perhaps 30% bigger than ladybirds, and they secrete a yellow goo that makes your eyes itch. They're horrid. They're an invasive species replacing the ladybird in Britain. Right?
No.
Ladybird, cute. 30% bigger, monstrous. Same
Yeah.
rule applies to the Fiat 500, doesn't it? And
So
the
That's
Mini.
exactly it.
Exactly.
So how do you tell the difference between a ladybird and a harlequin, other than that one is 30% bigger?
If you
Is that
pick
the
it
only
up and you
difference?
go, that's not cute, it's a harlequin.
Okay.
Ladybirds are really
self-evident once you look at it.
Yeah, ladybirds are really dinky. You look at them, oh, little tiny little ladybird. If it's bigger than little tiny, it's a harlequin and it's evil.
Because funny enough, I think there's a nest of ladybirds, or there was a nest of ladybirds in my house.
Probably harlequins.
And
they gather in the top corner of your house.
Well,
you sure?
No, because cute and small. Cute and small.
Okay.
And just used to find them on the upstairs landing, just on the banisters and things.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, my wife's going, oh, God, do you see about these ladybirds problem? I was like, no, I don't think we do, because they're cute. What's wrong with them?
Yeah. What
If it was an infestation of spiders or scorpions or something, you'd go, we've got to sort this now.
Or Fiat 500.
Or even, blue bottles or wasps or something. You go, they're dirty, unpleasant, get out. But ladybirds, they're sweet. Same thing. Oh, there's a load of Fiat 500s living in the loft. Oh, leave them there, they're sweet. But if you went, oh, look, there's some big Fiat 500s that are based on the Pinto platform, you go, get them out, call Rent-A-Kill. So this is the problem Fiat have got, but they're giving up on this, and they've also said, the Punto itself, Sergio Marchionne, the sweater-wearing boss of Fiat.
Sergio Marchionne.
That's how you have to say
Spaghetti
his
Western
name.
boss of Fiat has basically said, in a badly dubbed way, I'm sure, that...
Now, hang on. Dubbing in Spaghetti Westerns is very good.
Don't start him off on that.
No,
exquisitely
don't
dubbed way.
moving
on. So, he said that for the time being, they're not going to replace the Punto directly because there is no money in making hatchbacks of that size and that type in Europe anymore. No point doing it. Essentially, they're giving up. Now, Renault have just spent a fortune doing the new Clio, and Peugeot have just spent a load of money doing the new 208, and, well, the Polo, obviously, is internal, the Ford Fiesta. Soldiers on, that's made in Spain and in Germany. The Polo's made in Germany. Some car makers are saying, look, we can still make cars in Europe. But Fiat is essentially holding its hands up and saying, we really can't. Renault and Peugeot are teetering on a brink. I think Renault will be saved by Dacia.
Yeah, well, that's where they're putting all their efforts. Dacia, that's where all their efforts.
Cheapen, pile them high, sell them cheap.
And hopefully a Renault premium brand, which...
Never going to work.
No,
Never going to work. Why? Yeah. Why? We've got enough premium brands in inverted commas.
But that's where, surely, you have to look for your success as a car company if you're manufacturing in Europe, because you can't compete on the high volume, low cost cars. Those cars are going to be built more cost effectively in the Far East, and in the end you just can't compete. If it was not of a difference in the sophistication of the vehicles, of the design, of the quality, then you can still compete. But we know how Far Eastern manufacturing is coming along, and Chinese car makers are going to be producing more and more cars in the future.
And
You can't compete
Volkswagen
with those volumes.
are talking about introducing a cheap brand, a low-cost brand like Dacia. What's Skoda for? What's Seat for? Make up your mind.
What's Seat for? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Because it seems like nobody knows. I think it's a really interesting point that you're making about China. I don't think Chinese car makers, in the short and medium term, will make massive inroads into Europe. Yeah. But what could happen long term is look at the model used by consumer electronics manufacturers. Sony, Apple being a great example. You look at the back of any Apple product, it says designed in California, assembled in China.
Yeah.
Now, people actually don't really care where their car comes from. Most BMW X5 owners don't know that their stoutly German, awful person's car is built in America. Most people who drive an Audi TT don't know it's made in Hungary. Most people who have an older Porsche Boxster don't know it's made in Finland, and so on. They think, if you said to them, where's your car from? Oh, Germany. Because the values that it projects and the engineering and the design come from Germany.
Yeah.
It's only the final assembly that happens somewhere else where it happens to be expedient to do that. So, yes, building cars in China, where people like Volkswagen already have factories in joint ventures with local manufacturers,
Do very well.
Will anyone stop buying a Polo because it's assembled in China? As long as the build quality's all right and they still think it's a stoutly German car that's built to German standards.
Yeah,
No biggie.
Of course they're not going to buy.
And we will leave you with this thought. Peugeot, Fiat and whoever else, Ford, who thinks they can't build cars in Europe. If building cars in Western Europe is prohibitively expensive, explain the success of Jaguar Land Rover. You've been listening
Well,
to
no,
the
that's...
Oh, go on! Hang on, stop the music!
Production.
Stop the music!
No, I thought
Really?
you were going somewhere that would make perfect sense, and then you veered off into... Jaguar Land Rover are selling cars that are very expensive, and Land Rover actually is shouldering the success burden of that. Jaguar's still got to get their stuff together a little bit. They're only selling 50,000 cars a year in the whole world. That's not enough. Pull your socks up. But Land Rover doing very well.
Very profitable.
Also, Land Rover cars are always surprisingly expensive. Top of the range Freelander, that's 40 grand car. Top of the range Discovery, 50 grand car. And it keeps going. The new Range Rover spec it up to 120 grand. And people are buying them. Well done them. That's great. But that's a premium thing.
Yeah.
The people who are showing that you can mass produce a car successfully in Europe, and more than that, in the UK, are Nissan, who are making the Duke, the Qashqai, and the Leaf is about to start being made in the UK.
Yeah.
But as of 2014, 2015, they're going to start making a Golf-sized car in the UK again, where they used to make the Almira.
The Auris has been made in Burnaston.
The Toyota are doing that as well, but I think Nissan are proving they're actually
back.
sort of bringing it all back, and it's like, well, Fiat are going, oh no, we can't make medium-sized hatchbacks. No one wants them, anyway, we can't make them in Europe. And Nissan are going, yes, actually, you can. Just do it properly.
Restart the music. You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
Zog.
Goodbye.
And I'm Gareth Jones, and if anyone in the motor industry wants to write down any of those thoughts and how to manage their business, we've told you how. Ta-da.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv.
Seb, great job, absolutely brilliant. You're 3 times world champion. You might remember I promised you a special gift if you won a 3rd title. Okay, now I know when you won the 1st title we gave you an Infiniti. Yeah. And when you won the 2nd title we gave you another Infiniti. Yeah. But this time it's different, Seb. 3 world titles in a row deserve something special. Okay. So this time I haven't got you an Infiniti. I've got you 2 Infinitis.
Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!